So I'm really very pleased that you have given me this chance to share this wonderful knowledge, this special grace that I have received right from childhood, and that too from a master who is the master of masters, because you all know that India is the spiritual teacher of the whole world, and it's all due to the stalwarts, the great Jagat Gurus that we have. You had only 5 Jagat Gurus so far. So 5th original Jagat Guru, who happens to be my spiritual master, I have received the gist of the scriptures from him, which I'm going to share with you today. The question you know, and I'm sure you're waiting to know the answer, because almost everybody, I would say, not only here but in the whole world, has got this doubt, is tormented by this question from some time or the other in life. Why does a merciful God allow suffering? If God exists, He is a merciful God, He is a loving God, then why does He make us suffer? So many of the religions, they declare that we are His children. Amritasya vaiputraha. Some of you know the verse, Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva. In Christianity, our Father which art in heaven. Sikhism says, Tum mata pita hum balak tere. So He's the Father, and yet we have to go through suffering. And do you know that this was exactly Darwin's and Spencer's argument to prove that God did not exist? So, right from the dawn of history, man has been puzzled by this question and still continues to do so. In fact, even those who claim to be believing in God, their belief, their faith is always shaken when suffering comes in. And I have met people who have actually become atheists. They don't want to know anything about God when it has come to suffering. They've lost all their faith. So let us begin quickly. The subject is vast. It is very profound. And the time before me is very short. However, I request all of you to be attentive to every word that I say, and I'm sure by the end of this short talk, there will be a lot of clarity, a lot of understanding about this subject. Now, the first question, who is it? What is it that brings suffering to our life? Does God thrust suffering upon us? Does it come to us by chance, or are we responsible? The straightforward answer is that we ourselves are responsible for our suffering. And in order to understand this, we need to understand what you call the law of karma. The law of cause and effect. You have heard the quote, what you sow, you reap, right? Paul Brunton, a very great philosopher who read a lot about Hinduism, he said that the law of karma is scientific. You can compare it to the law of gravity. You may or may not accept gravity, but you're ruled by it. You may or may not accept the law of karma, but you are governed by it. So karma makes you responsible. Whatever pleasure or pain, good or bad, anything you experience in life is all your own doing. जो करेंगे सो भरेंगे. To be born a cripple, or to be born an athlete, to be born a beggar or a king, it's all the result of your own doing. So to cry against any injustice, to blame God, is actually speaking ignorance of the law of karma. So whatever we do in our lives, that's going to come back to us. Every action, it's called, you could say it's a boomerang effect. Now, karma, the word karma comes from the root word kri in Sanskrit, and kri means to do, action. Now, action concerns each and every one of us, and we all perform actions every moment. Nahi kaschit chanamapi jatutishthate karmakrit. Proclamation of the Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 5th verse. We cannot remain inactive even for a fraction of a second. Now, every moment, whatever we do is deciding our future. We are the makers of our own destiny. What is your future, if you want to know? It is just the past modified by the present. We are all products of the past, and we are producers of the future ourselves. Now let me explain this karma just briefly. There are 3 categories of karma. You probably must have heard before. One is sanchit karma, the second is prarabdha karma, and the third is kriyaman karma. What is sanchit karma? The total accumulated balance of all the karma that we have performed through infinite past lives. It's infinite. This balance of karma, sanchit karma, is infinite. Now, when some of these karmas mature, some of them mature in this life itself. For example, you're thinking about something and cooking, and without thinking, you touch a hot pan. What happens? The result is there. You burn your fingers. So the reaction is immediate. And some karma, they pass on to other lives. So remember, every action has a reaction, and this whole backlog of karma, accumulated balance, is called sanchit karma. The karma, some of it matures in this life, and some of it goes on to the next life. You know, you have bank accounts. So there are certain deposit accounts, fixed deposit, they mature at a later date. So some karma matures later, and they come to your next life. The name changes. It becomes destiny. You could call it fate. You could call it takdir. Many, many names. So destiny is nothing but your own karma performed with a freedom of will in your previous life, and it is a very minor part of that big balance of sanchit karma. Purva janma kritam karma taddaiva mitikatyate. The Hitopdesh is telling us what destiny is. Now, one important thing to remember about destiny is that it cannot be changed at all. It is inevitable. The Brahma Vaivat Puran says, Avashyameva bhoktavyam kritam karma shubhashubham na bhuktam kshiyate karma. You have to go through it. No matter how much you get involved in astrology, in palmistry, in psychic reading, in tarot reading, and numerology. People go to all these things because they think they can find a solution to what they're going through. But no, you have to go through it. It's your own karma, only the name changes. Just like before marriage, the lady is Miss so-and-so, and after marriage, Mrs. The person is the same. So destiny is just a changed name of your own karma in this particular life, what you go through. There are certain things which are governed by destiny. We cannot go into too many details. It is ayuh karma cha vittancha vidya nidhanameva cha panchaitanyapi srijyante hitopdesh. Death is certain. You know, as I said, if you're a thinker, you would observe these things happening in life. Whenever there is a tsunami, there is an earthquake, many a times after about a week or so, then when they dig up and they find a little child, mother's lap, mother has died, child is still alive. Some people who should not have been on the flight were there, the flight crashed. And some people who had booked their tickets, for some reason they cancelled, they didn't die. So when we think about it, then you will understand. And we say it as sure as death. So death is predetermined. We cannot change it with all the mantras, Trayambakam Yajamahe, nothing's going to happen. So wealth is predetermined. The whole world is running behind. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a billionaire. It's predetermined. Sabko karodpati banna hai. You know that program, I remember, was one of the most popular programs. So this is predetermined. The third karma, the most important karma, is kriyaman karma. Kriyaman karma is your freedom to perform karma, the freedom of will. And we have been given this only, I'm repeating this again and again, only in one form of life, human form of life. This freedom that has been given to us is called fruit-yielding action. So whatever we do is going to produce a result, a fruit, a reaction. So with this freedom of will, according to what we do, we can go down into animal life, or we can rise up into a divine life. It is all in our hands. Swatantra kriyamane vai krito bhagavata vida. We are free to do. All the other forms of life, you hear about the 8.4 million species of life? So just think, minus one only, human life. We are so fortunate to have human life. It's been described as the rarest of all embodiments. So one form of life, we have the freedom of will. Only one life. The rest are lives where people just work out the karma they perform in human life. You just bear the consequence. You can see the difference. Suppose you see dogs, right? Some are street dogs in India. Somebody has thrown some leftover food. They are going around licking those plates. And there are dogs who are traveling around in Rolls Royces and Mercedes cars. I remember long back, a cat, I think some person wrote 17 million pounds to the cat. So the difference is there. According to karma, if you've done good karma, but yet you are destined to be a dog. So you may be a dog in probably a Rolls Royce or a race. There's a difference there. But it is all working out of karma. Only in human form you can perform kriyaman karma. I'll give you a very little example. Suppose a person has been working all his life, retired now, put the money, all his savings into the bank. Say, for instance, it's about 10 million, okay? Now, out of this 10 million deposit, he needs to, there's a compulsory expenditure he has to incur, roughly about 1 million, And that is because he has to have his house repaired, and also he's going in for a private operation surgery, open heart surgery, the doctor has mentioned, and it has to be done quickly, and maybe daughter's wedding. So this is compulsory expenditure which he has to incur. And that complete deposit that he has made, that 10 million, you can compare to Sanchit Karma. Of course, don't forget, Sanchit Karma is infinite balance, but I'm just giving you an example. The compulsory expenditure, 1 million, destiny. And the free will is, he can either use that money, gamble it away and lose everything, or he can make more money. You know, when people retire, they try to do little jobs here and there. They want to increase their balance. So you can increase your balance as well. That is your free will. So this is just a small example that I've given you of the, interplay of these three kinds of karma. Now this law of karma is the chain that ties us to the wheel of rebirth, what you call the doctrine of reincarnation. This is central to Hindu philosophy, reincarnation. Sri Krishna explains to Arjuna in the Gita, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara prapte dhrirat tatra na muhyati. Second chapter, 13 verse. As you pass on from childhood to youth, from youth to old age, and then you go on to another life. It's only a comma, it's not a full stop. Death is not a full stop. So we've been going through lives like this. So Sri Krishna again says to Arjun, Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava charjuna. Tanyaham veda sarvani, 4th chapter, 5th verse. Arjun, both you and I have had many, many lives. You have forgotten yours, but I remember all. Now this Hindu doctrine of rebirth, of course there are many other religions also that accept it, this philosophy has been also welcomed by many renowned Western philosophers as the most meaningful, the most logical explanation of the disparity that we see around us. Some of you may have heard of William Jones. He was an Orientalist, came to India, learnt a lot, and he wrote 2 centuries ago, I am no Hindu, but I hold the Hindu view of rebirth to be incomparably more rational, more pious, more likely to deter man from vice, V-I-C-E, than the horrible opinions inculcated by the Christians about punishment without end. Even when Schopenhauer, he said, if somebody asked me for a definition of Europe and Asiatic, I would tell him that it's that part of the world that is haunted by the incredible delusion that man was created out of nothing, and this is his first entrance into life. So these deep thinkers, they were critical of what the Westerners thought. They accepted this philosophy of rebirth. And anyway, you too are aware of this because many of you are into this past life regression, this therapy, so I don't want to go into more of that. Our main question is, granted, accepted, that we ourselves are responsible for our suffering. Okay. What we sow, we will reap. Every action has a reaction, cause and effect. But our question is, if God is a loving God, He is a merciful God, and then we also hear He is all-knowing, He is all-powerful, then why can't He end our suffering. He's got the power to do it. A father in the material world, if he sees his son suffering, he can't do anything. I mean, there are many things that he can't. He's helpless. He doesn't like seeing his child suffer, but he can't. But God is all powerful. So our question is, why is he just sitting silently watching us, his children, his beings he has created? So how can he, what kind of father is he? What kind of merciful God is he? Now, those who raise such a question, they are ignorant about who God is, what is the position of God, and what are the infinite forms of his grace. The truth is that every moment that Supreme Being is bestowing his grace upon humankind in many, many different ways. The very first thing he did at the start of creation was revealed the complete gamut of what this world is about. All the spiritual knowledge was revealed. Who we are, why are we here, where have we come from, what is the purpose of life, what is this world, what is creation, who is God, what is our relationship with him, etc., etc. So the spiritual laws were all revealed right from the beginning, and at least today and most of the time, people don't understand. Those scriptures are very profound. It's his word, Nishvasita Matsya Veda. So he sent his own associates, the saints, to come to this world, to wake us up from the deep sleep of ignorance, to teach us, to motivate us, to inspire us, to push us onto the road to true bliss and happiness, and to reveal to us how we can end suffering forever. Now they came, there's never a time that this world has been without a genuine saint. However, most people, especially in this age of Kali Yuga, too busy, they turn a deaf ear to them. Then what does God do? He punishes us. He punishes us not whimsically. He punishes us through our own karma. We can understand this punishment in the world itself. Most of you I can see will have been parents, are parents. Have you never scolded your child? Have you never punished your child when the child has been disobedient, has done wrong? Of course you have. Now, when you punished your child, when you scolded your child, was it out of cruelty or enmity? No. This scolding, this punishment was another form of your love and care for the child, isn't it? Suppose the child steals a pencil box from school. He's attracted to it, it looks beautiful, comes home and very excitedly shows the pencil box to his mother. And the mother says, "Shabash, shabash, you're pretty clever. What a lovely pencil box you've got." What's going to happen? That eventually, in due course, the child is going to become a thief, professional thief. However, if the mother scolds the child, even to some extent punishes the child or threatens the child, then what will happen? Then the child will never do it again. And in the future, when he remembers what he had done, and if his mother hadn't scolded him, then he would have done more wrong things, isn't it? a child been eating chocolates and sweets, plenty of cavities, some really bad. Nobody likes to go to the dentist. Forget children, even elders. It's too much. Now, for a filling, what's going to happen? The child is protesting, and mother forces him to go to the dentist. He's placed on the chair. The child is screaming, "Let me go, leave me, it's painful. What are you doing?" And then if the child is going through a lot of pain, he might even kick up tantrums, hit his mother. Little children do that. And "I hate you." And he also thinks the dentist is also a very cruel enemy. Because that child's little mind works up to that extent that they are giving him pain. There is a difference. A doctor or a surgeon during an operation is holding a knife in hand. And a thief is also holding a knife. One holds the knife to give life, and one is holding the knife to kill the person. What a difference. In the same way, in this world, every country has got prisons, every country has got courts, policemen, etc. What is this set up for? I mean, so much of money goes into this. What for? For keeping people law-abiding and to punish those who are wrongdoers. So when a person is punished for wrongdoing, what happens is that person will, in due course, naturally, he'll be deterred from doing wrong, and there will be an improvement, right? So just as we have all these things in the material world, we also have rules, codes of conduct, of laws in the spiritual government. There's punishment. It could be in the form of 8.4 million species, or in this very human life. You say, "My life is hell." So even if there's no hell, we don't believe in it. But sometimes our own life becomes hell on this earth. Punishment. However, there is a very, very, you could say, an enormous difference. You cannot even compare the two. What will happen in the material court? Suppose somebody has committed a murder, and he is going to be, the judge is obviously, the punishment could be hanging him. So before it's pronounced, he cries before the judge, "Please, please forgive me. I admit I've committed the crime, but please, please forgive me this time. And I promise you, never in my life am I ever going to even lie once." He's crying, literally at his feet. The judge says, "Yes, I'm so glad that you have admitted your crime. You are repentful for your crime. So next time you do anything wrong, I'll forgive you. But this time you have to be hung." He says, "When will the next time come for you? You're going to hang me this time." But in the spiritual government, listen carefully. If we are repented from within, we ask for forgiveness from within with a spirit of surrender, then not one wrongdoing through our infinite lifetimes, whatever wrongs we have done, we could have murdered, we could have stolen, we have done everything. It's all there as Sanchit Karma. We are forgiven for everything, and that whole life, we are looking into past lives now, 1, 2, 3, this happened then, this happened then. But this, what the Lord promises is that you are going to be freed of all bondage, and I will promise to take care of your future. No more bondage, and not only that, you will be graced with that supreme, eternal, everlasting happiness, bliss that we have been ignorantly searching for in the world, getting attached to the temporary and creating more bondage. But remember, that surrender should not be in halves. Like we keep saying, day in and I'm sorry. Many a time we don't even mean it. It's become, like something on our tongues. Thank you, sorry. Not like that. Surrender cannot be in halves. You must have heard this system of confession, right? People confess. So by confessing, it's like you're getting rid of that sin, you're being forgiven. So they go for confessions. Now this young man, he went to a priest and he said, I want to confess for my sin. What have you done, my young man? Well, my boss trusted me with the keys of the locker, so I have stolen $200. He said, okay, so you stole only $200? Yes, I stole $200 today, but I want to confess for 500. Why? Because I'm going to go back and steal 300 more. So this is what we do. We keep committing the same mistake and we admit this is not surrender at all. Surrender is what Sri Krishna, at the end of the Gita, he says, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja. Tameva sharanam gaccha. Everywhere the word ev in Sanskrit means only. It has to be one-pointed. It has to be complete. And see what we are going to get. What grace. Suffering will, of course, end forever, but apart from that, we will reach that eternal abode of bliss from where there is no coming back into the cycle of birth and death. So liberation plus divine bliss. And the condition is complete surrender. Now suffering actually pushes us towards this surrender. The first thing that happens in suffering, we become detached. This is what the world is. I've lost everything. Everybody has deceived me. Whatever happens in your life, there is a gradual detachment. Then it also brings humility. And thirdly, when we go through suffering, then we want to know the answers. Why? And we also want to know what is the way out of this suffering. So there you go. Then step by step, we move towards this and find out that this is the way out. So in reality, if we think, it's a thinking Thursday, suffering is actually a teacher. It brings growth. It is for our betterment, but it is not easy to accept. You might just listen to me, oh yes, but I think it's difficult. Your mind is thinking that. But when you dig deep into yourself, then you will start experiencing what I am saying in words. I remember Jalaluddin Rumi's words, beautiful. He says, the wound is the place where the light enters you. Those who dug deep inside themselves, they came up with beautiful conclusions about suffering. Paul Brunton said, the sufferers of today are the seekers of tomorrow. The Divine Mother said, be thankful for the ordeals. Be grateful for the ordeals, same thing, for they are the shortest way to the divine. Shortcut. We all want quick results, we want shortcuts. So she said, ordeals is the way. Victor Hugo also said that it is suffering that makes human beings angels. Again, I remember Jalaluddin Rumi says, he said, suffering is a gift. In it is hidden grace. Hidden grace. The best example to understand this is a diamond. You know, a rough diamond is a clump of carbon. I don't think you would ever want to buy it. You won't even look at it. Everyone loves diamonds. Why? Because after they have been taken out, what happens to them? They are cut, they are chiseled, they are polished, and then they shine in brilliance. That's what attracts you. The same thing happens in life. My spiritual master, he has written, it's infinite what he has given us in the form of lectures and poetry. But this example of diamond that I'm giving you, I remember the beautiful lines he's written. Pratham to हीरे को खोदा काटा घिसा हीरा रोया बता दे. That's what we go through. We cry. And तब वही हीरा जब हरि का गले का हार bata, that same diamond became a part of the necklace of the King of Kings. Through the friction that you go, because the friction brings out the brilliance within you, the light within you. The struggles, the adversities, even gold. Gold is purified in fire. So everybody goes through that process and you become closer. You become closer to that divine through these adversities because it cleanses you, it purifies you. We have one unique example. You must have heard. Kunti, a lady named Kunti, she actually asked for a boon. We will never dare to. Vipara santuna shashwat tatra tatra jagat guru. 1:825 of Bhagavad Puran. Sri Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is standing before her. Ask for anything you want. And she says, I want you to give me calamities. I want you to deprive me of the world. I want you to give me hardships. Why? Because every time I went through some problem, some suffering, I always found you right near me. You were there for me all the time. So I want you, because when you come again and again to anybody, then that person one day crosses this ocean of the cycle of birth and death, is freed of bondage. I'm sure you've come across that beautiful analogy of footprints. It's a lovely poem. A person says one night he dreamt, he saw the scenes of his life, and he was on the seashore walking. He saw two pairs of footprints. One was his own footprint, and one was the footprint of the Lord. As life went by, towards the end, what did he notice? That off and on, in his saddest moments, in his most difficult moments, there was only one pair of footprints. He was really troubled. How could the Lord forsake me when I needed him most? Only one pair of footprints. So he asked, and the Lord said, my dear child, that one pair of footprints was not yours, it was mine. I had taken you into my lap. Even your own life, suppose you have two children. One of your children is quite okay, good in studies, healthy, strong. And the other child needs attention, is a bit weak, is sickly. Where will your attention be? To that one who's sickly, isn't it? This one's fine. The same thing applies here. Whenever we go through anything, remember, there is a grace behind it. There's somebody there for you. But we lock ourselves. What happens? Whenever suffering comes, I think it was Billy Graham who said it, that some people get angry and bitter against God, and some people their trust and confidence increases. So in suffering, some people become bitter and some people become better. That's the difference. But eventually, it's like that diamond that was polished. It's when we are cut, when we go through hardships, adversities, and problems, challenges in life, that's when we grow, we are polished. We shine with brilliance, but we don't understand it because nobody wants suffering. But the other aspect of suffering, which I said, is actually a blessing, a growth, a connectivity. So we must remember that in the realm of God, never think he's angry, never think he's cursing me, he doesn't like me. All these kind of thoughts come to us. We have to remember one very important point, that God and his saints, they do only one thing. Grace, 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 grace. They cannot do anything else. We can be angry, we can be jealous, we can be so many things. But poor God, the poor saints, whatever they do, X, Y, Z, A to Z, there is nothing but love and grace behind whatever they do. We may or may not understand. Who would have understood Sri Krishna during his dissension when he encouraged Arjun? Tasmat duttishta kaunteya yuddhaya krita nishchaya. Get up and fight. Arjun is saying, I don't want to fight. He encouraged him. We would have said he's Saddam Hussein. We wouldn't have understood. We never understand. But remember this formula, write it down. Whenever you meet a genuine saint or whatever happens in your life, so God can only grace no matter whatever wrong we do, there is a grace behind. He wants us to come home to that eternal world. This world is a temporary place. And it is our attachments to the temporary that has created bondage. You know what Buddha says? What is the cause of suffering? Attachment. So attachment to the temporary binds us. And therefore, Sri Krishna gives you the clue how to live in the world. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yuddhyacha. Chapter 8, 7th verse. This is the secret of the Gita. At all times and at all places, remember me and do your duty. Then there will be no bondage at all. You may do anything. There won't be bondage because the mind, see, bondage is all about the mind, not the physical action. So, there are people who know about history. When the Lord descended, we hear Kans was killed, Ravan was killed. And we saw that because we've been through all these lifetimes, seen everything. What did we see it as? An act of enmity. But what about the saints? Those who were pure, they could see the grace behind it. It was not enmity. It was a grace because those whom the Supreme Lord killed, they went straight to the divine abode, Ravan or Kans, whoever they were. But outwardly, this is what we saw. Therefore, we never understood. But those who understand, I love this story, very, very inspiring story of faith in the time of adversity. There was a couple that was on a honeymoon. And all of a sudden, they were on a small little ship and suddenly there was a very, very bad storm. The boat started rocking very violently. The storm was huge and the boat was small. The lady was very, very afraid, but her husband was sitting very calmly and coolly over there. She was surprised. She said, "Aren't you afraid?" She says, I mean, we are almost going to die. Only a miracle can save us. I can see that death is just here. We are going to be drowned very soon. So are you not afraid? The man stood up and he took out his sword from his sheath. She was puzzled. What is he doing? I'm asking him about whether he's afraid or not, and he's taken out his sword. And then he aimed the sword straight at her, almost touching the nape of her neck. He asked her, "Are you afraid?" She laughed. "Why should I be afraid? The sword is in your hands. You cannot harm me because you love me." It was a honeymoon. We don't know what happens after that. So he also laughed. This is my answer. God loves me. And the storm is in his hands. Whatever he does is good. If we survive, good. If we do not survive, good. Because I know for sure that God cannot do anything wrong. This is true faith, true belief, and this is the truth. And this is what we have to grow in. We have to turn our suffering into a spiritual upliftment. So instead of complaining as we grow, once we have this understanding about suffering, then our thinking will change. And normally what happens in life? We say, "Oh God, I have such a big problem." Now what will happen? After you understand the true position of suffering in your life, then you're going to say, "Hey, problem, I have a big God." So I hope that in the short talk, you have been able to grasp the purpose of suffering and who is responsible and how it's going to help us to grow from all that we have. We must have had these experiences before. So with these words, I end this short talk about why God allows suffering or does not do anything to change it. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share this wonderful knowledge with you. Thank you, Trupti ji.
Thank you, Didi. It was enlightening to hear you again. And this is such a topic that I think there are so many questions people have. So is it okay if a few people ask questions to you?
No problem.
All right, wonderful, Didi. So we have who would like to ask the question? There are some of the questions here. So Indra, would you like to ask the question first, please? Didi? Indra?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Please ask.
Didi, thank you very much for that.
Is it possible to see the person speaking who's asking the question?
I'm sure Indra can put the video
Yes,
on.
I have switched on the video now.
All right, wonderful. Yeah.
Didi, thank you so much. My pranams to you. Thank you to Varsha ma'am and Tripti ji also. My question is this. Why did God create the world? And why are we here? Why has God created us? And how does it connect with God?
I mentioned right at the beginning of the talk that this is a vast and profound subject. And I was fearing that anybody would ask me this question because it requires a detailed answer. However, let me tell you briefly. You've heard of pralay, dissolution. What happens in dissolution, the world, what the scripture, I'm going to share with you the scriptures. When the world gets into a chaotic state, after periodical time, this goes on. Creation, dissolution, right? Now, in dissolution, all the souls are lying in a pending state. Pending state. No experience at all, yet bound by this Maya. They haven't experienced true bliss, and in a seed form, all the karmas are there, right? They cannot do anything because it is a state of pending. Now, God is causelessly merciful. We are His children. Now, suppose a child is sleeping, hasn't eaten at all, and naturally you want to wake up the child because it's a long time. The child has been sleeping, you want to feed the child. Or the child is sleeping and there is something wonderful happening outside the house and you want the child to see that. So you will wake up the child, right? Now, in the same way, God, out of His causeless mercy, He wanted to give us another chance to get a human form and then to be perform that devotional action which would not only liberate us from this bondage, because the seed of karmas was still there, and after that to experience true bliss. Why are we bound to the world? Because of our attachment to the temporary. Why are we attached here? Because we are expecting happiness. Each one wants happiness. And for happiness, we seek it in this outside material world because we see it. And we say He's Sachidanand, but we don't go there. If at all we go towards God, it's to ask Him, please make me a millionaire, give me a big house, give me a good big job. We again end up asking for the world, but we don't ask for that bliss, that eternal bliss. So by creating, He gives us a chance again to get out of this rut and the cycle of birth and death and to reach that final, that permanent home and experience true bliss.
Thank you, Didi. That was
Thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we also have Anubhuti. Anubhuti, would you like to ask?
Yes, yes, yes. Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Yes. So basically, my question is that I got married at a very early age. I was very free, and I had a pretty decent concept of happiness. I did not want money. I was okay with I just wanted to be at peace, and I was pretty much satisfied with the kind of lifestyle that I had. I was not greedy, nothing of that sort. Never done anything wrong in my life. My husband was a great man, and to an extent that he actually passed away trying to save our pet dog from a fire. So that speaks volumes about the kind of man he was. And he passed away 8 months ago. And yeah, that did make me question the entire concept of God. And I do believe in universe. I still do believe in universe and the energies we attract. But it made me question the entire concept of God and karma for that matter. But yeah, what is that? Like, I have been looking for answers for 8 months now, and yeah.
But in a way, I did answer this, that birth and death, they are certain, you see. And that's why we find some infants, they die in the womb. One child cries just once and dies. Do you hear of these things? Right? So it is determined. Nobody can change that. If you know about history, Abhimanyu was very young and his father was Arjun, a saint. Uncle was Sri Krishna, right? The Supreme God. But they did not change that. So this is predestined. And when we hold on to anything in the material world as permanent, we are bound to experience the pain of it, because even we are not permanent in this world. We come one day, we leave one day. So whether it's our possessions or whether it's our relations, right? As I said, every religion, we say, Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhus, Tvameva Sarvam. Now the actual translation, there's a word Ev in Sanskrit which says, you alone are my father, you alone are my mother, you alone are my everything. Now y'all are into this past life things, right? So if we go into past lives, obviously your mother must have been different. Maybe your husband could have been your son in past life. Does it happen? Right? So what is permanent? Just tell me that. Relations keeps changing. And according to the scripture, we have been everything to everybody. It's not that we've gone into 3 lives so we know this much. No, everything. So we've had a relationship with each other. Everybody has had. So nothing is permanent. The impermanence of the world. So I know you're going through the pain of it, but like what you listened to today, if we listen to these things when the mind is in a normal state, it'll stay with you when you go through adversities and you have your answers. You have your understanding when things like this happen in life, and they happen in everybody's life. It's not something unusual. It happens to everybody, but the whole thing is our attitude and understanding. That is very important. So I'm glad you asked me this question, and I understand your pain, but it's the right knowledge, because as Vedavyas says, Ajnanam evatsya mula karanam. Why do we suffer? Ignorance. Yes?
Thank you, Devi.
Ma'am, I would like to ask.
Absolutely true. Yes, go on. Go ahead.
Ma'am, I would like to ask a question.
Yeah, Shivya, go ahead.
Yeah, ma'am. Okay. Ma'am, would it have been much easier for human beings if we were born with all the knowledge of our previous sins, so that we do not repeat it again in this life, or we try to work accordingly? Why is this world so much complicated? With even our previous life is given, and we repeat the same things in the present life also. If we would have been born that way, it would have been much easier for everyone.
You see, it would be very difficult. Because we are creatures who doubt things, that's why, Ian Stevenson, he's done a lot of research about people who remember their past lives, and he has documented them. But if each and every one of us were to remember our past lives, then what would happen? It'll be chaotic. Oh, so you would see one of those participants that are there in your group. That's the person who stole my money. And that's the one who ran away with my husband in past life. And this is what happened to me. And then life would be totally chaotic. So this erasing of memory is a way that we are able to start life in a proper way. Of course, inside whatever we have experienced, you see, it stays in a seed form. So it's not that it's gone, but it stays in a seed form, and it controls our actions in this life as well to a certain degree.
Absolutely, Devi. I just want to add to that. You can also ask a question that why is it that a child who is born can't just start to walk? Can't, right? Because there is a system which all this works, right? It's important to understand that.
Here, as I said, everything that happens is karma. The karma of the child, and mainly the karma of the parents as well. Because the parents go through the pain more than the child. Like those children who have got a slow syndrome, right? They are, happy-go-lucky most of the time. But parents are going through the suffering. So I agree what you said. It's complicated. This machine, this karma machine, you cannot put it in black and white. But one thing important is we have kriyaman karma. Kriyaman karma, freedom to do. And there is guidance to tell you what you have to do. So that is more important than anything else. So we have that privilege. We must take advantage of that. That's important. So it says, kadara man kahun, to go into the past, oh, I can't do this, I'm helpless. No, we have to do. So we have to take advantage of this freedom of action.
Absolutely, Devi. We also have Niharika. Narika Sethi. Yes, Niharika. Where are you, Niharika Sethi? There's Niharika Arora here also. So, Niharika Sethi, you want to ask a question? You put it up here.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, I've heard about moksha, as you said, that moksha where liberation, liberation and moksha. We should all seek that, and we should live a life and learn things. We should aspire to get liberation in life. But whenever I listen to this, I wonder, and I keep asking this question again and again, and I never got a reply. um, because I believe in this life and living good in a good way as a good human being, creating good karmas. But I don't know, there's no aspiration for that liberation. I don't know how to. I have friends who are, who have complete faith in God and everything they do. Even they are going to, as you said, even if they are going through a big suffering in their life, they have complete faith in God, and they are living that kind of life. But somehow I don't I don't know how to have that aspiration for the liberation. So is it like is it attachment to this worldly of this world, or how to break this attachment?
See, two things we have to have. Some people's spiritual journey starts with a shaking, a suffering. Down the line, it has come with people that when they go through a shaking in life, then they start thinking, and I don't want this anymore. This is going to happen life after life. We are going to be born, then there are going to be smiles and tears, and then we leave the world. That is what life is. Every life is going to be like that. So the other way is with the right knowledge. The more you understand what the world is about, you see, we have two aspects. One is this physical body duty. That's what the Gita talks about. Your duty towards your family, towards society, whatever. Then are you this body? Are you a body? No. There is something within, you call it energy, the spark of life, the soul. Now the soul, what we hear from the scriptures is a divine entity. The soul cannot be satisfied with anything material. You may become a king, you may become a prime minister, you may have the whole world, you may be a multimillionaire, but that's not the food for the soul. You need food for the body, which is this material world, but you need for the soul spiritual food. Till we do not feed the soul, then we will never ever be satisfied in life. Some point or the other, because whatever we have now, someday we have to leave. When you contemplate on life, that it's impermanent. Who knows, I'm here today, I may leave tomorrow. Who knows, your family, whether it's money, whether it's job, everything is, it's impermanent. The greatest lesson we are learning today is from COVID-19. The greatest lesson. People who were too busy in life, they had no time to think, they have started becoming thinkers. How helpless we are. We can't even move. We have the money, you cannot even hug your own your family members. You have to stay apart from them and no meeting people. I mean, just think. Everything is so unpredictable. So those people who never gave a thought to life, they have become thinkers. I have found thinkers have started becoming spiritual, and spiritual people are becoming more spiritual. So this COVID-19, on the outside, it seems to be the worst thing that's happened in the world. But there are many people who are talking about it in a very positive way. They say that we are sure that there is some spiritual purpose behind it, to awaken us, to give us time to think about life. So the more you think about life, then you will start thinking, why am I here? This is not a permanent thing. And even when you want to be a good human being, there are so many challenges, you see, in life. So when the challenges come, you wonder about what you are planning to do.
Yes, that's true, Devi. Absolutely. We have another question from Sanjeev ji. Sanjeev ji, आप कुछ पूछना चाहते हैं?
Ma'am, I have a doubt. Can I please clear?
Yeah, please.
Ma'am, I want to ask, why didn't Devaki and Yashoda choose moksha? When Krishna offered them that, they chose to take a bird as his mother, whereas Krishna has offered them that you can take liberation.
Because you have to know the difference between two goals. There are two goals. One is liberation. Liberation is emerging into that supreme energy force, whatever it is. And Devki and Yashoda wanted another life. What did they wanted to experience? They wanted to experience the bliss of duality. Duality means one is Krishna, one is themselves. So this is higher up. When you're in a state of deep sleep, right? Do you experience the bliss of sleep? No. You're dead to the world completely. Deep sleep. When you wake up, oh, I slept. It was so wonderful. I had a very peaceful sleep. So, in moksha, what happens? There's a merging. There is no experience of a divine bliss or love. Now, Yashoda and Devaki wanted to experience the love of having God as their child and enjoying those beautiful pastimes of the Supreme Lord. That's why they wanted that. So they wanted duality. They didn't want that merging. So it's like, do you want to become a rasgulla or you want to taste the rasgulla? That's how one person put it. One saint said, do you want to become a sweet or you want to taste the sweet? So Yashoda and Devaki wanted to taste the sweet. They didn't want to become the sweet, in simple words.
Lovely. What a lovely analogy, Bibi. Very nice. Okay, Sanjeev ji, आपको
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. Yeah, दीदी प्रणाम. मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है कि जैसे हम लोग संचित कर्मा और प्रारब्ध और क्रियमन कर्मा के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, तो how do we know that what is beyond our karma, or let's say whatever action or whatever decision which we are taking now, is it coming from our free will or is it right, wrong, which is coming in from our own, let's say, understanding or knowledge in this life, or is it coming in from our past life or past karmas?
Connection with the right knowledge is important. Now, what happens is when you want to do something right, right? And you want to do it, and you are being pulled, right? Into one direction. So that could be your past karma taking over. However, for our own living in this life, they say, don't think about the past. You live in the present and try to do your best on a free will basis. Like he says, Swatantra kriyamane vai. Don't talk about the past, oh, I'm helpless, I can't do this because of that. No, no, no. We have to think that, yes, I can do and move towards it. If it doesn't happen, okay, fine. But we have to try and do it as having that privilege of freedom of action.
Okay. So means we just keep doing the right karma or good karma, what we understand from our own knowledge and wisdom.
So that's why we need to link the mind with spiritual knowledge. That's why it's important. You see, when we say conscience, I'm going according to my conscience, my inner conscience. But ask a thief what his inner conscience is saying. The thief has decided that if I'm stealing anything, it's okay, fine. That person has got more and I have nothing. So I've stolen it. So his conscience supports what he's doing. So that's why it is said that you have to link your inner conscience with the spiritual knowledge. What comes from the scriptures, then we will be able to do the right. Otherwise, our own conscience, it can work against us also.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very nice. I think Rashmi wanted to ask something.
Now, Bibi, I have a friend very close to my heart. She lost her husband at a tender age of 29. And she also had a son, 1-year-old son. Now, after listening to you, I can understand that probably it was some karma of child and of my friend. But when I see them, even I go through that pain. Like especially when I see the child and my friend, I suffer a lot. So, was it my karma also?
Because she was your close friend, you see. There was an attachment over there. And many a times, you know, when people go for funerals also, sometimes they are not very close to that. You are close to that friend, so you're bound to experience. And as Buddha said, that attachment brings pain. But many a times when you go for a funeral and we have tears rolling down our eyes. So it's also at the back of the mind, there is a kind of, you could say, a fear. It could happen to anybody or any, to me anytime. We are not aware that there is this going on in the subconscious, but that's what happens also. However, because you were attached to the friend and we think that she's going through pain, but in reality, even when there are so many people who are orphans, right? You know that, no? And they have grown up to become ministers and they have grown up to make money. And who is looking after them? The world will still go on. We think that we are the ones who are doing, but it's not true. There is a hand behind. Everything is planned for the child. So as I said in the last example, the man said, I know that God cannot do anything wrong. Whatever is for your benefit, that will happen. So suffering, as I said, that chiseling, that cutting, that polishing, it brings out, it illuminates, it brings out your brilliance and you grow and you connect to the truth.
I think Aparna, you want to ask a question on miracles? Please ask. Aparna, you want to ask a question, Aparna?
Yes, Didi.
Yes, please.
Yes, Didi. I would like to know that do miracles still happen in today's life?
Like what?
And is this a boon for today's life?
What exactly do you mean by miracles?
A blessing from God or something which just happened to you in a sudden time.
You see, as I said that when it comes to the material world, things like somebody is sick and becomes better, or something happens out of the blue, so we take it as a miracle. But when we think of these things as a miracle and God's blessing, when something happens the other way around, then we are going to take it as a curse. You understand what I'm saying? So when it comes to the material happenings in the world, it happens according to karma. So if we have got complete faith, then we should remember that when the miracle happens, this is a blessing also. And if it goes the other way around also, that is also a blessing. Because a philosophy where we think attainment of the world, or things go according to what you want, that is a miracle. But if things don't go according to what you think should happen, then you will take it as anger or a curse. So it's important to understand that everything that happens is a purpose behind it, and everything is a lesson. We are in a earth school. So whatever is happening is a lesson, a growth in our lives. So good things we think as miracle, but sometimes those are, like every fall is but a rise. To know that is to be truly wise. When we fall, we rise.
Thank you, Didi.
So
Thank you, Didi.
attitude is important in life. Most important is attitude.
Okay, I think we'll take the last one or two questions, Didi. Seema, you want to ask a question?
Yes, ma'am. Didi, pranam. Pranam, Didi.
Yep. Rajate.
Actually, I have a cousin, and he has two sons. One is like 23 years, and the younger one is 18 years. But both have very different sanskars. One is so studious, and the other one is like into like all the bad habits. So my cousin has given both them the same sanskars. So where something went wrong.
Nothing went wrong nowhere. Because you see, each individual. Now, if you take twins as well, they look alike, but their natures are different. That teaches you that you are only an instrument to bring the soul in the world. You are not the governor or the keeper or the controller. That soul is an individual soul by himself or herself, and you have a connection with that soul from the past. You see, that's why they are there for you. So that soul has got its own past sanskars. Both of them are separate individuals. It's not necessary, and that's what teaches you that although the parents are the same, the two are different. That tells you that you are not the one who actually is the one who has given them birth, in the sense that you have created them. You haven't created them. They live with you, but they don't belong to you. As Khalil Gibran said, the children, they live with you. They don't belong to you. So they're individual souls by themselves.
So, the person is himself responsible for his karmas.
Correct. They are two individuals born with their own karma, and we have to learn by then that although we were parents of both, in reality, that soul is an individual soul by itself, and we are here, like you could say, step parents to take care. That's why the Hindu parents, when they teach their children, I ask them, why do you teach your children, Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva? What are you teaching them? That you alone are my father. Then what about you? Then you have to tell them that I am a temporary mother and father for you, and I have been given the duty to give you good sanskars, to look after you. Internally, you have to remember that. You don't need to say to them, but you have to remember that within yourself, that we are here just to look after them, and they don't belong to us. We haven't created them.
Thank you, Didi. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, we have one more question. Dr. Bhuma. Bhuma, you want to ask a question?
Yes, ma'am. Namaste.
Namaste.
My question is that what is the food for the soul that you should, like, reading the right knowledge, getting the right knowledge, doing meditation would be the answer. But I
So spiritual food. Spiritual food consists of spiritual knowledge, a connection to God, devotion. This is spiritual food. Right? So we want something divine. The soul is divine, it seeks the divine. So divine knowledge, a connection with the divine, that is spiritual food. Our meditation, our devotion, that is what it is. You're most welcome.
We'll take just one more question. So we have Amog. Amog, you want to ask a question? I think there's also one more question from Garima. So we'll take the last two. Okay, Didi?
Okay.
Okay, can Amog, you want to ask, Beta? Amog? Yes, there he is. अमुक अपने आप को पहले आप म्यूट पे हो. Okay. Okay, you're not. We can't hear you, Amuk. Okay, then the last question will go to Garima. Garima.
Pranam Didi.
Yeah,
Didi,
that's
I
it.
want to understand. So when we say, everything is karma, and if in our current life we are going through some kind of a relationship issue, then should we just accept it because it is my karma, right? It is something probably from the past. So should I accept it and go ahead, with the suffering, or should I just leave it and move on? But then the next question that will come to my mind is, if I move on and I'm not completing my karma, then this may come again in some other lifetime. So how do we make that right decision, that right choice?
You see, I mean, with your little that you have said, it's not that I can give you advice on that, but I can tell you, because when you try to repair a relationship and it's just not working, so that means maybe it's not meant to be. I'm not saying you leave it, because your individual problems and all that, I don't know much about it. But what I'm just trying to tell you is that the relationship, that karma will continue when you have a kind of a negative feeling about that. I remember I met a lady, and she happened to have been separated from her husband, divorced, and she looked after her children. When I went to her, all she talked about is, I have been able to do this. I've got a big house. Yes, my husband has a bigger house. So all she talked about was her husband and things like that, and about what she has been able to do and what he hasn't done. I said, do you want your husband back in your next life? She said, no, never. I don't want him at all. I said, but you think about him all the time. You're talking about him all the time. I'm sitting right here before you. Instead of talking about what I could share with you to give you a mind of a different bent of spirituality, you're only talking about him. So if you keep thinking about that, then the connection is still there. But if you let go, that it may not be, I'm trying my level best to sort it out, but it's not working out. So after that, the feelings of hate or grudge, if they continue, then that means the karma will come back. Okay.
Giving you a chance again if you are audible and you want to ask your question. Now we can only have one.
Only one question, please, because yeah, not only that, we have a early schedule over here in our home. We get up at 2:30 in the morning, so
I know, and it's late for Didi now.
a bit late, yeah. So last question now.
Last question now, yeah. So,
We can meet sometime again, but today it's the last question.
thank you so much for saying that. Okay, the last question can come from one person now, either Amog or Umaji. Okay, Umaji gets it.
Pranam Didi, I want to ask if you feel stuck in your life somewhere, so what, and you know about your karma, so what sadhanas can we do to fasten and burn our karma?
I just told you that karma is burnt through grace, through surrender, right? And the sadhana we have to do is connection to God, because you are not this body. All your relationships, everything in the world is related to the body. I'm a divine soul, and my relationship is to that supreme divine personality. So to develop this relationship and to understand that in human life, the main purpose, there are two goals. One is this material goal, that is a secondary goal, but the primary goal of life is to connect to that supreme being. So accepting a relationship, I am not a material body, I'm a divine entity. I'm a part of that supreme being. And when you accept him in a certain relationship through devotion, my master, my child, whichever your mind relates to, then that's going to gradually help you to connect. And when that connection is complete, then, as I said, that complete balance of sanchit karma is wiped out through grace.
Yes, Didi. Thank you so much, Didi. Didi, I wish to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I speak for everybody who is here, that you graced our little group here and you've given us some pearls of wisdom. And I'm sure all of us are going to inquire on this, whatever you have said. And I think we started the whole thing, you saying about thinking and how important thinking is. So I hope and pray that we all take these wise words and inquire on them, because I think that's the way forward.
That's very important.